What's going on, everyone? LMC here. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. A lot of stuff on the screen right now. What are we doing? This is going to be an attempt to give you all the information that you need to know on how to build a Dragons B10 auto team and successfully, complete this Dragons layer at 100% success rate and be able to farm those really important runes. Get yourself those 6-star violent runes. Dragon's B10 is not the only place you can get the 6-star violent runes. You can get them all the way from Dragon's B6, B7, B8, B9, B10. But the higher you go, so B10 is going to give you the highest success rate, the highest chance of getting those 6-star runes that we're all in search of. 6-star runes, if you get a really good violent 6-star hit point percent rune with really good substats, that's what those endgame players are using to be the absolute best. So it's pretty important to get a team put together for something like this. As a free-to-play player, it was very important to me. I never even tried to farm Dragons B7, B8, or B9 because I wanted to go straight for B10. I wanted to maximize my energy usage and have the highest chance of getting the really good runes. So I suggest you guys do something similar, and we're going to go over all the specifics on how you need to build a team to do this. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody on the Facebook group who helped me out here, posted a lot of your builds, and also the free-to-play guild members. They're awesome. They posted a lot of their builds and explained a lot of different team suggestions to me as well. I had my team, but their teams are probably a lot easier to build in some cases, and it all depends on what monsters you guys have pulled. What I want to say about Dragons B10 is there's no ultimate team. There's no specific team that's the only team that's going to work for this dungeon. There's a lot of different possibilities for monsters. Basically, let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at the spreadsheet I put together here, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Lumara, the water sylphid. Her ability to solo Dragons B10, a lot of people get super hyped up when they pull Lumara, and I've tried it. I put really good runes on my Lumara, and she had probably, if she got past the first tower, she had probably like an 80% chance to be successful. I didn't have violent runes on her because, well, you get violent runes from Dragons B10, so I had swift runes on her, and it was more painful than it was awesome that she could actually solo the dragon sometimes. It took a really long time, and it's not what I suggest. There's so many different team possibilities to be able to build a successful 100% team that I would suggest using Lumara. You can see up here, this is a past run of mine, and I'm using Lumara. She's standing out in front there. She's not my leader. Veromos is my leader. But she does a really good job. She's a survivable monster, and she helps keep your team alive. But anyways, enough about Lumara. I don't suggest it. That's not what we're talking about today. Let's go over just some of the mechanics of this dungeon so you guys can better understand it. So when you're building a team, you can prepare for it. So here we're already on the very last level. This is a complete auto battle. So just taking a look at it, here's my team. Basically, there's 2 towers, and I am set to attack the left tower first with all my monsters. You want to take out that left tower because when that left tower gets to attack, it has a chance to put continuous damage effects on your entire team. As you can see here, these are continuous damage effects, and every time your monster attacks, I just lost Acasis in this battle. Every time your monster attacks, that's 5% of their total hit point pool being reduced. So that's continuous damage effects. Continuous damage effects are very important for your allies to have, like Veromos and my Sylphids here. They're putting up dots on the towers, which are taking down 5% of the tower's hit points every time the towers attack. So basically, also, along with having damage over time effects, the dragon himself does more damage if you have harmful effects on your allies, which are damage over time effects. Those are the only effects that your allies can get at the very final boss stage here. So it's very important that you have monsters that are capable of cleansing those damage over time effects. Veromos, the Dark Ifrit here, Every time he attacks, he cleanses 1 damage over time effect from your entire team. Very important. You can see I'm actually taking 2 cleansers. I'm taking Konamiya as well, and Konamiya has a skill which heals the party by 15% of their hit points, as well as cleanses all effects. So Konamiya helps me out because when the left tower is still up here and I'm getting those double damage over time effects, and Veromos cannot keep up with cleansing everybody, Konamiya will come in and kind of save the day. If you can keep the damage over time effects off your allies for the most part, you're going to have a much easier time. Because when the dragon attacks, if you have harmful effects on your monsters, it hurts a heck of a lot more. So that's kind of like rule number 1. Keep the damage over time effects off your monsters. It's pretty important with basically all teams. If you can't do that, you can put up immunity. There's some monsters like Chloe, things like that, who can really help keep your team alive. So my team is really unique here. Here's my team on the left. This is basically what I'm running, which is kind of unique because I don't have a revive monster. I don't have a Reser. I have Dark Ifrit. He's my leader. He's giving extra hit points to the rest of my team. You can see I do have all 6-star monsters and Konamiya. Konamiya is only 5-star, but he does have pretty good runes to give him a lot of hit points, so he is survivable. So you can see right here, boss battle attack order. You can do left crystal, right crystal, boss. That's the normal way to do it. And if you're good enough, so okay, the right crystal is going to put up immunity for the dragon. So every time that right crystal attacks, it's putting up another round of immunity. Some people can take Belladon or another monster that can take that immunity skill away and do enough damage to the boss to kill him without killing the towers. That's very dangerous. If you don't kill the left tower, you're going to get more damage over time effects. If you have great runes and a really good team, I know Predator does this. He kills the right tower, so he takes away the dragon's immunity, but that left tower he keeps up, which is still applying continuous damage to his team, but he can heal through it and remove the debuffs fast enough that he can just kill the right tower, then the dragon. So that's a possibility too. But for those who are just starting out, I don't recommend it. I recommend left tower, right tower, dragon. So basically you saw round 1. It was all crystals. It was 2 little crystals and 2 big crystals. The big crystals hit for a lot more. Both crystals can put a defense break on your monsters. So that's going to be the biggest challenge, is keeping the defense break off of your monsters. Or if you do have defense break on your monsters, making them tanky enough to not die. So Konamiya, you've seen defense break, and then that tower hit with the defense break, and that took down more than half of Konamiya's health. Luckily, Acasis puts up a shield here, and Amin heals through it. Veromos took away that defense break, and my Konamiya stays alive. So my team's very survivable, but that was still a close call. So this is the 3rd round here. You got 2 large crystals and the dragon. If you're having a hard time with full auto, I suggest targeting one of the towers. If you can get one of the towers down, that makes it much easier. Once I kill one tower, there's no way that the 2 crystals and the dragon can burst down any of my characters. If there's 2 crystals, I shouldn't call them towers, 2 large crystals and the dragon's still up, they do have a chance to burst down one of my characters. Just because if they get that defense break at the right time, in between my monsters attacking and my monsters aren't doing their survivable attacks on auto, and then they both hit, because once that defense break goes up, they're going to focus right on your monster with the defense break. So it's possible that I can still lose a monster with this team, which brings me to the point why this team is such an oddball, and I don't really recommend it, but I never worked on a revived monster. So the way that I'm surviving here is I got 2 cleansers. I got Konamiya, Veromos. My Amin's got really good runes. I don't generally recommend Amin, and I think most people, you'll see once we start going over some of these different teams, prefer Belladon. Belladon can heal as well as increase the whole ally's attack bar. He can also remove the immunity on the boss, but I don't think that's that important, and he also has defense break on the enemies. So defense break's always a great thing. It brings them down a lot faster. It doesn't really bring the towers down too much faster because they have such strong hit points as it is, and defense. You mainly get the towers down through damage over time effects. So before we stop talking about dragons here, you can see my team runs through this in about 6 minutes. So it's not super fast, it's not super slow. But one thing that's very important is if you kill this tower, see, look at that. Well, that really didn't hurt my Lumara much, and I'm not sure what killed this tower, but if one of your allies kills a tower, the dragon will counterattack with a very strong attack and probably kill one of your monsters. So it's very important that you kill the tower with damage over time effects. It's kind of 90% of the time I do it on full auto anyways. The damage over time effects do kill the tower, but every once in a while I'm unlucky enough to have Amin hit a tower with his strike, or my Veromos, Dark Ifrit. Dark Ifrit has pretty strong attacks, especially since I skilled him up. He can kill a tower and actually do a decent amount of damage, and if he kills it or my Amin kills it, I'm kind of in trouble, and if it's on full auto, I still have a small chance of losing. So you want to kill the towers with damage over time effects. It's really easy to do if you're on full auto and you're half paying attention to the game. If you get enough damage over time effects to kill the tower, just switch to the next tower. If it's the left tower, go to the right tower. If it's the right tower, go straight for the boss. And just let those damage over time effects work. Don't have the damage over time effects up and then still be attacking that tower. So that's just one way to ensure success. So basically go for the big crystals over the little crystals. The big crystals do more damage. Both little and big can hit you with defense break though. And try not to kill the towers when you're fighting the dragon here with anything other than damage over time effects. So my team has Lumara, Acasis, and Veromos, who are all putting up damage over time effects. So that helps me kill the boss quicker. And, you know, it works 95% of the time full auto, 100% of the time if I'm paying a little bit of attention. So here's my team. Veromos, we already talked about this a little bit. Veromos does damage over time removal, and he also puts up a lot of dots with his single target attack, his skill 1. Konamiya, the water Garuda, does the dot removal plus heals, and Konamiya is actually really good too because Konamiya can get another one of your allies to attack again. So a useful character there. I'm taking Amin because I have really good runes on Amin. You know, any healer is acceptable. Belladon, Chasen. We'll go over some of the different suggestions later. I'm taking Acasis even though she's elementally disadvantaged against fire monsters. Just basically because I have such good runes on Acasis and she's already 6-star. A 5-star Acasis is probably not going to work out for you guys at all. You need a 6-star Acasis with really tanky runes, or else she's going to get bursted down. But she puts up that extra shield every once in a while for extra survivability, and my Acasis is Despair as well, so sometimes gets stuns on the crystals. So it helps out quite a bit. And when she does that AoE attack, which has a chance to stun all enemies, she's also healing the whole team for I think 10% of their hit points. Lumara, she has a skill. It has a long cooldown timer, but it heals 100% one ally. So that coupled with her first target attack does damage over time effects, same as Sylphid. They have the same first skill. It makes a pretty good team for me. And I'm doing this without any res monster at all. So let's talk about some of the other people. BP37, he's got a team here. And let's just take a look at some of the different pictures here. So people have been posting some of their Dragons B10 teams. We got Lumara, Belladon, Water Garuda, Konamiya, Wusa, the Water Pioneer. He's really good. Veromos here. And these aren't really labeled with whose teams they are, but you can kind of see. I'm just going to let you glance through these kind of quickly. Veromos, Belladon, Konamiya, Brienne, so a Rezer here, and Lumara. That works fine. This looks like basically the same team with Megan. So Megan's a good monster as well. Megan's a natural 3-star, and I know a lot of people have already worked on her for an arena team. She increases the defense and attack power of all ally monsters. That's one of her skill, plus increasing the attack bar. So Chasen, Veromos, Leader. So you're going to see a lot of similarities with some of these leaders. So Lumara is the leader here. Lumara has 50% resistance for all water monsters. So resistance can be really important in dragons. Basically, let's take a look at leaders first. Veromos, so I would rank him, the Dark Ifrit, extremely high in my books because his leader skill increases the hit points of all ally monsters 30%, 33%. So that's a very viable leader skill. If you can have enough hit points to resist the burst, and I say the burst when you get that damage or that defense break on one of your allies, you have to stay alive during that. Unless you have a Reser, but you don't want to put too much. You know, the Reser can usually only revive a monster once every 6 turns or something. So you still, you know, you need a lot of hit points. So you're going to see Veromos is a viable leader. There's also Lumara here. That's a viable leader if you need the resistance. And if you're planning on kind of soloing the dragon towards the end, that's mainly when you would take Lumara. And I'm sure with this team, the Wusad and the Veromos, most of this stuff will probably all stay alive because this is a res monster too, actually. But how many people actually have the Fire Valkyrie? Not that many. So there's a lot of 5-star monsters that are really viable, but you don't need 5-star monsters to do this. Okay, so we have another Veromos, Vertihil, Fire Vampire. He increases the attack speed of all allies in dungeons, and this is a dungeon, Kairos Dungeon, by 33%, I believe. I have one right here. And I've never used Veromos, Vertihil, sorry. Fire Vampire as a leader, okay, attack speed by 28%. So basically, if you're going with a team with Vertihil as leader, you're going for a speed, almost burst team, something that's going to stay alive long enough, but you're, you know, I see Vertihil and Hua in a lot of teams, so here's Vertihil again. Here's Vertihil and Hua. And Hua is sort of viable, but I don't know if I would go after this team if it's your first Dragons B10 team. You know, I got a feeling if you do a team like this, it's going to be much faster than my team. But you might have a hard time getting your monsters strong enough and with enough runes to be successful 100% of the time. And if you're going for 100% success rate and you don't want to be extremely frustrated at this dungeon, maybe don't go this route. You know, Beretta, so another speed leader here. So the Fire Sylph, Beretta, Veromos. So we've only seen, you know, maybe 4 different leaders. But the good thing about Veromos, which most people are having a ton of success with, is, you know, you can fuse him. It takes a lot of work to fuse Veromos, but he's great for everything. So I highly recommend him. I'm not saying you have to get Veromos, but if you do, you're not going to regret it. There's a lot worse things you could be spending your time fusing doing. So, okay. So BP, Veromos, Chasen, healer, really great healer if you're lucky enough to pull this 4-star Sky Dancer. Epicon Priest, Fire Epicon Priest, Chloe, if you're lucky enough to get Chloe. She has that immunity plus invincibility shield. So anything with immunity is also really good because it's going to keep those defense breaks and damage over time effects off your allies. Perna, 5-star monster here. That's the Fire Phoenix, as well as Water Hell Lady, Beth. So most people aren't going to have these, but it's working for BP. So Predator, and then he actually helped FT Akara use the same exact team who didn't have a Dragons B10 team before, but I think this is a really good team. Veromos for lead. Konamiya also removes harmful effects. Belladon. Belladon's a great healer and an attack bar buffer. Brienne for reses. So basically, yeah, and Water Mystic Witch Megan. Megan's actually pretty good because she increases your attack bar and defense and attack of all ally monsters for like 2 turns, I think. But what I would suggest for anybody new is who's trying to build one of these teams for the first time is start working on a res monster. There is Brienne, who's the Death Knight. You could also go with Michelle, who's a reser. If you're lucky enough to get a Fire Valkyrie, that's a possibility, but most people won't have that. Here's an interesting one by Vrillavi. He's using the Light Garuda Tion, but he also has Brienne. So he's got 2 resers on his team. And Tion can also heal the allies. And I don't know how good Tion is in auto mode because he's going to be using his res to heal all the time. So not super highly recommended here, but it's working for Vrillavi. So cool. Eladriel, if you're lucky enough to pull a Wind Archangel, you know, that's another res monster. Should probably put this here. What else we got? Here, this is res. Norwegian Trolls, elite team. I'm sure this is a very fast team. So Brienne, Death Knight. McKeen, I think it's called McKeen. It's the Water Undyne. Water Undyne is a res monster as well. Let's take a look at her. And I would suggest McKeen. You know, this was going to be my choice for a res monster before I had an auto B10 team. So let's see if we can find her. Where are you? Right here. So attacks all enemies with a swirling, recovers hit points with the lowest hit points by 20%, so a little bit of heal here. Revives a dead ally with 40% hit points. So one thing that's great about McKeen here is she has elemental advantage against fire monsters. So this is a very strong possibility. The only problem is you need Water Undyne McKeen to fuse Veromos. So you almost need 2 of them if you're building this team. So I'm not going to go over this list too much because basically I'm going to post a link to this right under the description for this video so you guys can see and take a closer look at this information and hopefully, you know, figure out a good team for you. And if you've pulled a few of these monsters, 4-star monsters like Brienne, maybe you know, Megan's easily farmable. The Inugami here, Light Inugami Belladon, you know, probably start working on him. The Garuda, Water Garuda, you've probably seen a ton of them. You know, it's easy to get a max skill Water Garuda. Very useful in a lot of situations. Tower of Ascension and Dragon's B10. So I would suggest that. So I would suggest basically this whole team, the only 4-star monster is the Death Knight. You can see Jameer, so this is a speed leader as well. That's possible, but it's a 5-star monster. You know, I wouldn't go after Acasis for this team. If you're just starting this build, I would probably go with McKeen instead of the Death Knight Brienne. So that's fusion, farm. So here's a full team. Just swap out the Death Knight for McKeen for the Water Undyne, and I think you're going to be good to go. That's going to be 100% success rate in my books. And you have 3 of your monsters are water, so they already have a higher resistance chance to resist these harmful effects. So that's a good choice right there. Take a look at this. We got, thanks to everybody who posted their builds. I think this is going to help a lot. It gave me a lot of ideas towards this. So Jay-Z's got a lot of 5-star monsters here. Sigmoris, he's very capable. He might be a little squishy, but he is water, so he is elementally advantaged against Dragon's B10. He's going to kill the towers awfully quickly. Depending on how you rune him, though, he might be a little squishy. That's okay as long as you have a res monster. So possibly, in this team up here, you know, if you have a Sigmoris who is fusion material as well, you can fuse Water Phoenix. Maybe replace Mystic Witch with Sigmoris. I think that would work out just fine. And if you do have Sigmoris, I would suggest replacing him with Veromos, just in for the leader slot. Keep Veromos, but take Sigmoris as your leader because he's going to give you more hit points than Veromos will with his leader skill. So don't forget to do that. I mean, there's a lot of monsters that are very capable here. Spectra, the Fire Griffin, he does damage to the dragon proportionate to the enemy's hit points. So he's going to do a lot of damage because the dragon has so many hit points. So that's a possibility as well. There's a lot of possibilities, and I'm going to let you guys figure out your best team, because you have to look at your monsters and decide what team you're going to shoot for. And I highly recommend you do that. Just write it down on paper. Say, hey, I'm going to work on these 5 monsters and work on the runes on them next rune removal day. All my best runes are going to go on these 5 monsters, and I'm going to get this Dragon's B10 auto team. Once you get that, it's really going to skyrocket your game. It's going to help you a ton. And if you are a free-to-play player or close to, let's just say you're not spending thousands of dollars on this game, I recommend getting a team that can do this. Getting these runes is very important. And if you haven't seen it already, check out the Giants B10 video on how to make a 5-star team to auto that. You know, there's probably better runes. Well, there's more useful runes. There's Energy, Fatal, Swift, a lot of really useful runes that drop from Giants B10. But Dragons B10, you're going to make a lot of money farming this, and Violent runes are super important, as are some of the other runes too. So it's good to farm both of them on auto mode if you want to have really good, well-versed monsters. So I think that's enough about that. I'm going to go over my runes for my team real quick in case you guys are interested, just to see basically what my auto team's capable of. So Acasis, I have max skills on my Acasis. It's probably not necessary, but this is necessary. The force field, cooldown turn -1. You know, that's kind of what you're looking for. You're also looking for it on your Lumaricia. I have a lot of skill ups for Lumi. But you're also looking for the 3rd skill, Healing Breeze, cooldown turn -1. If you can get those 2 skill ups, those are the 2 most important. So okay, Lumaricia, runes. I got Despair, Focus. Focus gives you more accuracy. The more accuracy, the better. The more damage over time effects you're going to land. So I got a 6-star defense percent rune here, +12. I got a +15 hit point percent rune. Plus, look at this defense. I mean, she's very tanky because of this. And she's also got 5-star +12 accuracy. So some accuracy here, but these runes make her quite tanky. She's got a decent amount of speed too. Well, +24, it's better than nothing. So that's my Acasis. I do recommend Despair for Acasis. Go for it. She becomes much more helpful and useful for Tower of Ascension, for a lot of other content too with Despair runes. I tried her with Swift and Energy and Swift Focus, and I really preferred Despair. Lumaricia, I got Swift Focus, hit point percent 6-star, so this is good. Makes her pretty tanky. But I took most of my best runes off Lumaricia and gave them to some of my other monsters to make the whole team survivable as a whole and not worry just about this monster. So you don't want one monster to be super tanky and then have the rest of your team suffer if you're trying to build a team for like Dragon's B10 here. So disperse your runes evenly to make sure all your monsters are survivable. So Focus, Swift, hit point percent. Down here, this isn't a very good rune. I mean, it's +13, so she is getting a decent amount of hit point percent, but it's only a 4-star. I could definitely upgrade that in the future, but for now, she's plenty tanky. I actually have accuracy here for Lumaricia, and if you're going to build her to try to be able to solo this content, you're not going to go accuracy here. You're going to be looking for accuracy substats, but you're going to go hit point percent, defense, and you probably want Violent instead of Swift. So the runes are very difficult for her to be able to solo. So I got, I don't know, some pretty good runes here. Hit point percent +11, that's nice down here. It's a +9, 6-star, so some extra hit points. You're looking for accuracy substats, hit point percent substats, and defense percent substats. that's basically it. You know, I got some good stuff here. This is a really good rune. 6-star. I love this one. Accuracy, it's all percent. I'm not trying to show off my runes, but she's pretty hard to kill actually with the good substats on my runes. She hardly ever dies. Veromos, I don't have the best runes on him, but he's got Violent Energy. I think Violent's definitely the best for him because both he has the passive, which you know, removes one harmful effect, and it also recovers his hit points by 15% if you remove a harmful effect on himself, but it keeps the rest of the team alive. And both of his other attacks, I spent all my Devilmon lately that I've been saving for months on the skill ups for this guy because he's 5-star and he's just so good that I thought it was worth it. So both his skills are awesome. So with Violent runes, you know, you want him to be casting these skills as much as possible. He's got a very high success rate with these harmful effect pluses, and even with 50% chance to inflict continuous damage for 2 turns, he's doing more damage over time effects than any of my other monsters on the dragons. So he's very important. The Violent runes help him get even more attacks off, and his Super Crush, that's a silly name for a skill, but you know, that's really useful for stunning. It's an extra stun on the towers all the way up to the dragon. You can't stun the towers on the dragon, but you can stun the enemies getting to the dragon. So, okay, Violent Energy is what I went with. Speed, hit points, and hit points I went here. So, not the best runes. I don't have 6-star hit point percent runes, but this is a good rune. Plus 14 Violent. It's got some resistance. You know, you're looking for accuracy percent substats again. And yeah, that's basically it. So I'm working on Belladon here. I don't have very good runes on this guy, so I'm definitely going to be changing out my runes, but I have hit point percent. This is not suggested. This is the only Violent rune for slot 4 I had at the time when I put this on him. But he's doing more damage than normal Belladons. But I think speed, hit point percent, accuracy is what you're looking for with like Violent. Violent, I don't know. Maybe Violent Focus, maybe Violent Revenge. I'm not totally sure on Belladon actually. Alright, so Konamiya. My Konamiya is very tanky. Look at all the lots of hit points. So you need to make Konamiya very tanky if you're only going to do 5-star. If you're going to do a 6-star Konamiya, which isn't the worst idea in the world. If you do a 6-star, you don't need this much tankiness. But hit point percent. Ooh, I don't have very good runes. And defense percent. So this is a good rune here. Plus speed and plus hit point. This is one of the runes that really helps keep Konamiya alive. So on Dragon's Keep, I want to say that defense percent is a little bit more important than usual, especially because there's so many damage over time effects being cast on your allies that they're going to take 5% of your hit points no matter what. So if you have defense percent, you know, that's going to help save you, because when you do, I mean, the enemies attack really hard in this level. So when they attack really hard, if you have defense percent, it's going to be worth more than hit point percent, because if you get a bunch of damage over time effects anyways, you're going to be taking that 5% of your hit points no matter what. If you can keep, you know, so you do want to mix, but with defense percent, at least you're not taking the hits quite as hard. It's about the only way to really, because if you just go straight hit point percent, you're going to take really hard hits, and you're going to take 5% of your hit points with each damage over time effect. So it's generally viewed that defense percent is pretty important for Dragon's Keep, more so than usual, because usual it's hit point percent that you're looking for these monsters. Anyways, that's my Konamiya. He's got okay runes. You know, I need to substitute these out. I need to get some better runes. But speed's important as well. Speed on Konamiya, very important. And Violent Konamiya would be perfectly acceptable. I had a lot of Swift runes because I'd been farming Giants B10 way before I made this team to farm Dragons B10. So I have more Swift runes than I did Violent. This has actually got pretty good substats. But I got Swift energy on him, and he stays alive pretty good. Water Werewolf Vigor, he's actually a monster you could throw into your team too if you're still looking for a replacement for your Dragons B10 team. This attack actually hits pretty hard and has defense break, and it's according to the max hit points now, so they just gave this guy a buff. I'm not using him right now, but I still like the guy. I think he's very capable. He increases the attack speed of the team, which can be very valuable. You know, that's what kind of makes Vertihil, the fire vampire, so valuable, because when he gets critical hits, he increases the attack bar of the whole team. It's very similar to getting the attack speed increase buff from Vigor, the water werewolf here. So if you get this cooldown turn -1, every 3 turns he can cast this, increase the hit points of all of your allies by 15%, so he's healing and he's giving you attack speed increase for 2 turns. So he can be a really good monster in my opinion. And I know a lot of people are using him for Dragons B10 teams, plus he's water, he has elemental advantage. What else? I don't use Megan right now, but this is my Megan. My Megan's pretty fast. You know, I'm using Megan in Arena when I'm looking to burst down enemies quickly and I don't have time to really put up my tanky offense. So speed is basically what my Megan was going for. And I have used Megan on Dragons B10. Her skill here, which is the same for Arena, which makes her so good, the attack bar of all allies by 20% and increases their attack power and defense for 2 turns. So increasing your allies' attack power isn't as important for Dragons B10 because you're killing the dragon in the towers with damage over time effects. It's easier to do than it is to make a team that's strong and has strong attack power, because basically all the monsters I just listed don't have strong attack power. They all have hit point % runes and defense % runes. You need them to stay alive. If you had Megan and you had really strong attack power monsters, it'd be harder for them to stay alive, and plus this dungeon has the monsters have so many hit points and defense that it's just not as advantageous for the attack power. But increased defense, that is very good. It keeps your team alive a lot longer. So okay, Megan's possible, but I don't have her rune properly by any means. But Swift, I got speed, you know, accuracy. She's probably not survivable enough. You know, the only reason I'm using this rune right here, which is a very good rune, it's only 5-star, but it's got this +10 speed, so that's why I'm using this one. So she's probably capable of being put on this team just because this rune helps a lot. Anyways, what else can I talk about here? I'm sure I've taken up way too much of your time already. What haven't we talked about? Okay, let's talk about Fedora. Fedora is very capable of this as well. Can be used on a lot of teams. Fedora is the Water Death Knight. I don't see any teams using him right now, and maybe I don't suggest him as much. But his skill protects allies from death. You know, who really cares about that? Because you're still taking the damage. Removes all harmful effects and grants immunity for 2 turns. So anything with immunity and removing harmful effects is very powerful. And if you get the cooldown turn on him, it's reusable every 5 turns. Normally it's reusable every 6 turns. So he's okay, but I'm not using him because I don't think the rest of his skills are really that useful for Dragons B10. He's plenty survivable, but he doesn't really help the team. He doesn't have any heal. He does have the immunity, which helps, but in general, Konamiya is a better choice for me because it's a heal plus harmful effect removal. And if I'm using Fedora, Fedora doesn't really couple real well with Dark Ifrit Veromos, because Veromos kind of wants those damage over time effects. He's healing 1 from the team every time he attacks, but every time a damage over time effect goes on him, he's healing himself as well. So if you have immunity, Veromos doesn't get to heal at all, which is okay, but generally Fedora just doesn't seem to have as much to offer. Not a bad choice. This can be very useful depending on your team. If I didn't have Veromos, I would definitely be putting up Fedora. So okay, my Fedora is super tanky, you can kind of see here. I just made a super tanky one. It's not what I'm probably going to keep. Next rune removal, I'm going to change those runes out. So there's a ton I could talk about, but heck, this video has already gone 40 minutes. It's way longer than you guys want to see. So I hope this explains some stuff for you guys. I'll post a link to this spreadsheet here, and I hope you guys can build this Dragons B10 team. Thanks for watching. If you watched the whole thing, hopefully you got something out of it. You learned something, and special thanks to everybody in the free-to-play gaming community who helped build this team. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page, the free-to-play gaming webpage. Apply to a guild. We have a lot of work to do on these guilds. We'll talk about that later, but there's a whole host of free-to-play gaming guilds, and it doesn't mean you're a free-to-play player. It just means, you know, you want to be a part of this community and help other players. That's all the free-to-play gaming means. So, talk to you guys later. It's been fun. Hopefully we'll have a lot more videos out soon. LMC signing out for now.